Here we go. Chapter 1.
And I have a quote for you.
Okay.
Waiting for inspiration is like going to the airport and waiting for a train. Have you ever had that perfect thought that gets you lost in the keyboard? When your words turn into pictures. That happens to me when I write that down. This is a podcast about becoming a writer, my favorite books, authors, and everything about the written word. This is Write That Down. Welcome to Chapter 1. It's our first official episode.
Way to go. You're now getting the hosting duties down. Job well done. So how was the week? What'd you do?
So it was the last week of school, so we did a bunch of fun things for the end of the year. And one of the things that we did was a virtual talent show.
A virtual talent show through like a video conference like Zoom or something?
Yeah, so we had a Google Hangout, and then everybody would present their talent.
Did you participate?
Yes, I did, actually.
What was your talent?
Well, I did writing.
Wait, what? You did writing as a talent?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like you wrote a poem or something?
No, not exactly. What happened was I said I need a character, an occupation, a setting, and a problem. Go. And then they all gave me suggestions.
So you're on the Google Hangout. Mm-hmm. You said you need those type of characteristics to write a story while the rest of the talent show was going on?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
What were some of the things that the kids gave you?
I trusted my friends, and I knew that they would be the ones to put suggestions in. So I wasn't that scared, but I was a little bit to write the story. So the first thing we started off with Hawaii, and I was like, oh, okay, not that bad. I can do that. And then it was like Bella as a character, and I was like, okay,
These are the suggestions coming into you. Okay.
I saw one named Bill, which I didn't choose that one as the main character, but he's a secondary character. I tried to incorporate all of the suggestions, even though I only had to incorporate one of each. The problem. So one of my good friends suggested that Bella the baker, which was the chosen occupation, had lost her shoes.
They're making it tough on you.
Yeah.
Well, you knew shenanigans were going to ensue.
I knew, but I didn't expect it to be that.
Okay, so just so I get, you asked for suggestions.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around this because I've never heard, this is pretty unique bringing this to a talent show. You asked for suggestions. They gave them to you. And then while every other kid participated,
I wrote a story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you get it done?
I got about half a page done, which I'd say is pretty amazing for having that
Would
happen.
you have like less than 30 minutes or something?
No, I had like 10 minutes, I think.
Okay, so you had about 10 minutes.
So I had about 10 minutes, and then I finished it on my own, and like I expected it to be about a page long or maybe 2. It was maybe 6 pages.
Nice job.
Mm-hmm.
Can you read some of it?
The craziest 6 pages ever. I'm going to read the beginning because that's where all the suggestions come into play.
Okay, so this is the beginning. Did you title the story?
No, I did not.
Not yet. So we can work on that.
We can work on that.
Okay, so refresh my memory. Bella in Hawaii.
Who's a
has
baker.
A shoe issue.
Yeah.
Okay. Take it away.
Yeah. My pair of shoes were perfect. They were crystal white and weren't yet stained, which is a tall task in Hawaii. I wore them everywhere. The store, the beach, the airport, everywhere. But one day, they were gone, and I have a suspect. That morning, I went to the beach for my daily morning walk. I took my shoes off and put them by the rocks. Being quarantined isn't super fun, so before I head to my bakery, I take a walk in the morning sun. Bella, I hear my name called.
That's pretty awesome. Great start.
Thank you.
Were you happy with it?
Yeah, at the beginning at least.
That's awesome.
It was a little chaotic afterwards.
Is that what you were able to present for the talent show?
I could present that, and I think a little bit more. And then I finished the 6 pages on my own.
How did it go with the talent show?
Well, I won, which was super unexpected. I just did it for fun, and I didn't know that they'd be voting or anything. And
what were some of the other talents?
There was a guy who solved a Rubik's Cube in 39 seconds.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. There was some digital art showing, which I think was pretty cool. There was some singing. Yeah, there was a little bit of everything.
I think it's really unique.
It is.
Job well done.
Thank you.
Nice work.
Remember when I said I wanted to have guests?
I do, absolutely, yes.
Well, I knew exactly who my first guest would be.
Okay, who?
My 4th grade teacher, Mrs. Work. She was pretty much the core of my writing. She was just the kindest person.
She's been a big inspiration to you?
Yes.
She's been a big inspiration for our family because your brother had her, and then you
Hopefully,
had her. Right.
Little sister will have her.
All right, let's bring her in.
So, thank you for joining us.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
So, you are our first guest on this podcast.
Well, thank you. That's amazing.
So, let's just start out with, why do you love teaching language arts?
Oh boy, I love teaching language arts because I was a reader and a writer as a kid. I still am, and I like to pass my love of reading and writing on to the next generation. So I thought, what better, better way to do that than to be a teacher?
Obviously, as a language arts teacher, you receive writing projects from students.
I sure do.
So what are a couple things that you think that they should work on?
Well, I guess it depends on the genre. For story writing, planning out your story and having an idea in your head of what you want to say, but then when you start writing, slow it down so that you can describe everything in the same detail that you think in your head. With nonfiction, organizing your writing into clear and concise paragraphs and topics. So I would say organizing number one, first and foremost, which is pretty much your first step in writing. And then the other important step is the last one, which is the revising and the editing, to go back and clean it up and look at what doesn't make sense, even giving it to somebody else to read with a fresh pair of eyes who can give you advice as to what they think you could improve on, which is what professional authors do all the time, is another good thing. It's they don't like it. Kids don't like to do it. Even adults don't like to revise, but that is definitely the most important step in the writing process, I would have to say.
So one of the many great things from our 4th grade year was our Iditarod unit.
Oh, you like the Iditarod.
I love the Iditarod. So for those who don't know, what is the Iditarod, and when did you gain an interest in it?
The Iditarod is a dog sled race that occurs the first weekend in March every year, and it lasts for 9 to 15 days. I think this past year was year 46 for it, or something like that. So it's been going on for a while, and I gained interest in it because I read a book about it, and I had no idea it even existed. And when you think about Alaska, even though it's so far away, being one of our 50 states and having no idea that this whole culture and tradition existed in one of our states, it was just neat to learn about something new. And I kind of like adventure. I like dogs and I like sports. So it just kind of encompassed all of those things. And it's been really fun to use in the classroom too.
I remember studying it for like 2 weeks. So how did you incorporate that into daily learning?
Oh my goodness, so many ways. There are some very talented teachers across the country who devise lessons for all subject areas, for STEM, for art, but oh my goodness, it has morphed over the years. So even when you were in 4th grade, I'm not even sure do you remember what you did, like for the Iditarod, what you learned about, or how?
Well,
how
I remember
it was.
We studied each person.
You track your muster.
Yeah. And then I remember we did the little crafts that went with the Iditarod, and we did all like a bingo chart. So I remember doing that and like what each letter stood for in the Iditarod.
Okay, character. Yep, character. The character words like innovation, determination, things like that. The Iditarod, because it's real life, it just, for example, with math, even though I don't teach math, how much money does it cost for a musher to run the Iditarod or to even own a kennel? And if each booty that the dogs wear on their feet costs 96 cents, and they have a team of 16 dogs times 4 feet each, but they need to have backup booties. There's so many real life logistical conversations that you can have, and it's not like opening a math textbook and reading about Sally needs to go to the store and buy 5 apples. These are real people having to do these real things and problem solving. What do you do when your sled breaks? How do you fix a runner when you're in the middle of Alaska? And teamwork. Oh my goodness, there are just so many amazing skills, so many amazing books that have been written about dog sled teams, both fiction and nonfiction, poetry. Gary Paulson, who's one of my favorite authors, who wrote Hatchet like a million years ago, he ran the Iditarod, so he has books about that I've read to my class, and it gets them interested in reading other books by Gary Paulson because they're so fascinated by him as a writer and just his experiences. So it really appeals to those types of kids and adults who like the outdoors, who like nature, who like adventure. It's really fun, and it's different because not many kids or adults even know what the Iditarod is. So I feel like I have this opportunity to teach them something new.
Yeah, I remember you incorporated every single subject into it, just into this one unit. It was really awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
So one of the greatest moments of 4th grade year, besides the Iditarod, was when Rabouillet came to our classroom. And I know that you know him personally. Why do you have him come every year, and what about his writing do you admire?
Because of Mr. Terept was the first book he ever wrote. And I know you're working on writing a book, and you're hoping to have it published by the time you're 16. Is that right?
Correct, yeah.
And you're 12 years old now?
I'm turning 12 on Tuesday.
Almost 12. Happy birthday!
Thank you.
Yay! So it took him, I think, 5 or 6 years to write Because of Mr. Terept. So if you don't get your first book published by the time you're 16, no worries.
Yeah.
Because it does take a long time. When a teacher in Lakota, I think, had recommended that book and to read for a character unit because it studied different characters so well. And I just remember reading it by myself first, because I always read books before I read them to my class, and thinking, this is incredible. The craft that he uses, you mentioned it in your last podcast, where you liked how it was told in first person from 7 different perspectives. It's a pretty amazing style. He's not the original person that ever wrote like that, but he definitely does a fantastic job of honing in on these different personalities. So when you read their chapters, your brain switches into this different mode where you're following that one person and you feel how they feel. And so I would say once I read it and I told other teachers about it, the first year I ever read it, I just Skyped with him for 30 minutes where the kids could ask questions. And then as more teachers started reading it, I thought, okay, if every teacher Skypes with him, and it costs money every time we do that, because that's how authors make money, is by school visits and Skyping and sharing their, knowledge and stuff. And if 15 language arts teachers want to do this, why not just bring him in? So that's when I asked if he lives in Massachusetts, I think. And that's when I emailed him and said, would you be interested in coming to Mason? And our PTO, who is amazing, funded his visit for 1 day. And then the year after that, he was here for 2 days. And the year after that, he was here for 2 days. And it just kept snowballing because the kids loved him. I know you really enjoyed hearing him speak and talk about writing, and think about you times 800 kids who just felt so rewarded by that experience. And that's why we kept bringing him back year after year, because it was just an unforgettable experience.
Before you go, we're going to ask what are some of your favorite authors and a current book or a most recent book that you've been reading.
Okay, so right now I'm reading a book called The Great Treehouse War by Lisa Graff, Graff. And I have a second book by her. So Lisa Graff is an author that was recommended to me by Abby Cooper, and Abby Cooper lives in Minnesota. And I met her through Nerd Camp. I make connections with a lot of authors, assuming that I'm going to need them one day for use in my classroom or advice or something. And so I just finished Friend or Fiction. I think you would really like, I think you would really like Friend or Fiction because of the type of reading and writing you like to do. It's a great book and it's a quick and easy read. So that one's by Abby Cooper. But I always ask authors, what are you reading now? And what are some of the favorite books that you've read? And so she gave us a list of different authors. So Lisa Graff is what I'm reading now because it was recommended. And it's The Great Treehouse War. And that's a middle grade novel. My favorite authors. I loved hearing you say that The Land of Stories was one of your favorite series. Chris Colfer is phenomenal as a writer. I loved Land of Stories. Alan Gratz, because I like historical fiction. I really like Alan Gratz novels. I really like Rob Bouillet, of course. I really like Gary Paulson and Jacqueline Woodson. And I'll just keep going, Elle. You're gonna have to cut me off. Ghost. Who wrote Ghost? You know.
Oh, is it the one about track?
Yes.
Yeah, I read that series.
And
oh my gosh,
Lou and
it's
Sunny
like
Jason Reynolds.
Yes.
Jason Reynolds. So yeah. I saw him speak last summer. And he is, oh my goodness, he is so inspirational.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I love him. I heard Jacqueline Woodson speak. I've heard Sharon Draper speak. Anytime you can go to, especially Joseph Beth, they do a phenomenal job of getting authors to come and do book signings. Just, they're so inspirational to hear the behind the scenes. Like if you've read one of their books, and they tell you how they came up with that idea or what inspired them to write, because I know you like to write your books based on inspiration of things that you have experienced in your own life.
Yeah.
So it's really neat, but I like to read authors who are different from me. Did you learn about window and mirror books?
I don't think so.
So mirror books are books that when you read them, you can see yourself in them. And then window books are kind of like books that you read that are windows to another world that you don't know as well. And I like reading books that are window books because I feel like it helps me have more empathy for situations that I am not familiar with. So Insignificant Events in the Life of a Cactus is a book about a girl who doesn't have arms. And to read this story and learn about someone who still carries, she plays guitar, she can shower and dress herself, she can eat, she doesn't have arms, right? So you think, how is this even possible? Well, of course it is, because there are people like this everywhere who are without limbs that we take for granted every day. So I try to pick up as many window books as I can so that I can, in the event that I encounter someone who is in a similar situation as a character in my book, I already have a little bit of background knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Are you writing anything right now?
That's hilarious. Oh my gosh, my grandpa would be so sad to hear me say this. I am not writing anything. He always encouraged me to at least journal and just keep a journal. And I am not. Keeping 3 children alive and fed every day is my goal in life. I wish I was writing, Elle. I really do. But instead I just read what other people write. And maybe one day I will write, just for fun. But right now, sadly, no, I am not.
So if you were writing a book, what do you think it would be about?
Oh my. I like to read fantasy, but I think I would have trouble writing it because I think I would get too off track. So it would likely be how Rabouillet started. He was a teacher, so he wrote about what he knew. So I would find myself writing a book about, maybe about being a teacher, about maybe nonfiction. Maybe I'll just do a memoir, a day in the life of me, because it's easy and I don't have to think a lot and, have a very stretchy imagination. But I think it would be easiest for me to write about something that I'm familiar with and something that I know. But I haven't been inspired yet to write anything. I feel like you need to be inspired in order to start, to make that big blank page not feel so scary. So if I get inspired to write something, you're going to be the first to know.
Well, you've inspired me, so.
Oh, I'm so glad. But I think that you are, I think I'm glad that I inspired you, but I think you would have done this no matter what. I think this was your calling no matter what. And whether you picked it up in 3rd, 4th, 5th, or 6th grade, I can definitely see this being something that you carry on for a long time. And I'm really excited to see what you do with this talent, with this podcast, with just getting the word out that writing is amazing. It's an amazing tool. And you're so talented and well versed that I could not be more proud to hear you do all this. This is just amazing, Elle.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, so my little sister is going into 4th grade, and we were all hoping that she gets in your class, I
hope so too.
Just so we can see you again. You're such an amazing teacher.
Well, even if she's not, you can still come and see me. I'm in the little hole in the middle of the hallway that looks like a fishbowl. So I know you'll both be in different buildings next year. Mm-hmm. But if I'm there. Well, we don't know what next year looks like, but I'll assume it in some way, shape, or form. I will be there all the time. So yeah, you come visit anytime. I would love to see you and to catch up with you.
Well, thank you for coming on today.
You're so welcome. Thank you for inviting me. It was an honor.
Job well done on your first interview. Mrs. Work is a dynamic teacher.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Teachers are special in our household because your mom's a teacher.
Yep. All right. Well, at the beginning, I said a quote about waiting for inspiration.
Yeah, where did that come from?
The internet. But there's a big debate on whether or not waiting for inspiration is an actual thing.
Okay. What's the debate?
The debate is whether or not waiting for inspiration is a thing. I think it's a form of writer's block, but it's an excuse for not writing.
So what you're saying is...
writer's block you can fix. You can fix waiting for inspiration.
All right. So what side of the debate do you fall on?
I do not believe in waiting for inspiration. It's an excuse for writer's block. You're like, I'm waiting for what the world has to say. There's a lot of things that it's saying that you aren't paying attention to.
Oh, I like it. Now you're getting into my field of work, observe and report. I like this. As your producer of this fine show, and I do think that you do find inspiration in places that people don't typically look.
Well, so you find inspiration. It's just waiting. The waiting part is false advertising.
What do you mean by false advertising? That's funny.
It's not a thing.
Okay.
The waiting part. There's people walking down the streets. There's trees that are blowing in the wind. You can incorporate any of that into a story.
I also think we should apply this to you cleaning your room. Waiting is not a thing. So
yeah, it is.
Do you ever have writer's block?
Yeah. I mean, everybody does.
How do you work your way through it?
Writer's block can be fixed. Waiting for inspiration cannot. So that's why I think it's kind of pointless.
How do you work yourself through writer's block?
I stop. And I do something.
I see. Like, is it a quick break, or do you, like, go...
It can be days.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're saying write something down.
Yeah. No, I'll write something down, and then I hate it. So then I'm just going to take a break, either for a day, a couple days, and then I come back. Majority of the time when I get writer's block, it's already when I have something down. Like, I'll write the beginning or a chapter or whatever, and then I come back, and I'm like, all right, what are we going to add to this? And then maybe I add a couple sentences, and I'm like, where do I go from here? So then I'll probably just take a break. I wrote something today, which is what matters. So then I'll go do something else, whether I come back that day, whether I come back in an hour or 5 minutes, in a minute. I have to get my mind off of writing for a second.
I think I've told you this story many times. This reminds me of a conversation that we had when we lived in California, and I interviewed this author by the name of James Rollins, who is a veterinarian, and he writes, I guess it's sci-fi, but anyway, he has a sign next to his computer that says, "You have permission to write crap today." And that goes to your point. He was like, I just want to get something on the page versus not doing anything at all.
Yeah.
And it's okay. You don't always have to write that perfect sentence that day.
Yeah.
I think you're onto something.
Yeah, well, what it is it's easier to edit crap than it is to edit nothing.
Being a journalist and dealing with very, very strict deadlines and many deadlines each day, believe that you can
just
crank it out. You can grind.
But you already have your storyline.
Valid point. For the most part.
You just have to figure out a way to say it.
Correct.
Which is the difficult part. But
plus we work on a very strict framework, right? So
yeah.
Who, what, when, where, why. As long as you're answering those questions, that gets your, that's a bare minimum for a script.
Yeah.
It's context that I'm always looking for and fighting to get better at.
I feel like what I would do is it's kind of like an essay. You can do it two ways. You can write from start to finish with context included, or you can write, or I guess there's three ways. My teacher taught us to write the beginning, the ending together, and then the two middle paragraphs together, because they're basically just the same thing, And then there's one other way where you write the beginnings of each thing, which would be for you the who, what, when, where, why, and then you add the context later, which I feel like that's how I would do it, because then I already have my base, and then I can just build off of that.
Appreciate the tip. I know you're 10 times of a writer than I am already. I can tell you that right now.
It's okay.
No, I'm proud of that. Awesome. All right, so can you share the quote one more time?
Waiting for inspiration is like going to the airport and waiting for a train.
We certainly hope this podcast is an inspiration to you.
Have a good week. You've been listening to Write That Down, the podcast of an aspiring author. Now, this is the part where I'm supposed to give a shameless plug of all my social media accounts, but my parents won't let me have any.
Write that down.
Thanks for listening. Happy writing.